neutralize this, and how, if they're affected, how much are they affected compared to mu and beta, delta, etc.
Yeah. So Sam, who knows this? I mean, I know you're a bit of an expert, when it comes to, genome sequencing, and this is what we need to know is exactly how it, interplays with a lot of our vaccinations. Is that, 2-3 weeks? Do you need to wait for the WHO, or is there someone that you rely on to actually, do trials that tell us what this is?
Yeah, it won't be trials. There are labs in South Africa who've been doing phenomenal work in looking at genomics and the viral ability to evade immune system. And that's Professor Penny Moore, Professor Alex Segal. They have the research going on. I would expect to hear some data from this called neutralization assays. How well can antibodies neutralize this virus? But as I said, within the next couple of weeks. And that's what my expectation is.
All right, thanks so much, Sam Fazeli there, of course, our virus expert and director of research at Bloomberg Intelligence. Mark, I mean, I think, there was a pretty dramatic sell-off. I don't know whether that continues or whether people take solace and just wait for that genome news.
I think in the short term it will continue. I just don't see why anyone would fight it today. It's Thanksgiving liquidity. We don't have enough knowledge to fight it. I think maybe next week we'll start seeing people fade this. I think in the short term it may not go much further, but I'd be surprised if people aggressively want to buy the dip, given what we have and given the valuations we came from. It's also important to note that financial conditions were tightening going into this situation. We were seeing yields come higher, we were seeing the dollar strengthen. It was becoming a little bit more difficult for markets in the last few days already. And then we've got this news, we've got low liquidity. It's only going to be about deleveraging today, not about necessarily being aggressively anti-risk or risk averse, but just deleveraging.
Does this, Mark, actually change the trajectory of the economy? And again, we don't know what we're dealing with, so we don't know about future lockdowns, but does it impact how we consume? Does it impact commodity prices? What's the thinking there in traders?
I mean, that's clearly the worry at the moment. I think that some of the reaction in commodities prices probably look a little bit too stretched to assume that we're going to see such a big decline in demand. We've got to remember that vaccinations have generally proved extremely successful. We're not only using vaccinations, but we're getting boosters now. The world tends to become more and more insulated all the time. Ultimately, I wouldn't expect this to be a big economic impact, but it will retain that tail risk until, as Sam said, it could be a couple of weeks until we get clarity. And if there's a chance that this renders the vaccines that are currently out there pretty much useless, even though we can get new ones very quickly now, that will be a severe blow for the economy. And I think probably the most interesting way to look at this is about that tightening in the Fed. All the past week, we've been talking about a faster pace of tapering, bringing forward rate hikes, and now suddenly we're kind of going, wait a sec, a few weeks, we might not have information. Maybe the Fed, DEC 15 Fed, isn't live for speeding up the pace of tapering.
Are people worried? I know it's early days, but is it possible that they could be worried about a policy mistake at this point, or is it that actually it's puts more pressure on the stagflationary scenario because it actually pushes up the price of inflation?
I think it would be a fear of a policy mistake. Obviously, we haven't seen that policy mistake yet. And if anything, I mean, the market's been dovish. I don't think we've seen a policy mistake on the hawkish side yet. But certainly that will be the fear if we don't have clarity going into the DEC 15th meeting. Now, hopefully, based on the time span that kind of Sam Fazeli outlined there, we might have clarity by then. We might have clarity that, look, ultimately, this is a little bit more difficult. Maybe it's like Delta, so it's challenging, but, vaccines will work, boosters will work, and we will get through this. That is likely the base case. But as long as we've got that tail risk, markets are going to be very nervous. And we might get some quite funny moves today as some stop losses are triggered.
I mean, I was going to ask you about some of the funny moves. I mean, I have to say the sell-off, 3% down futures is quite an extraordinary move. How bad timing is it that it's also Thanksgiving, so a lot of traders are off?
It's really bad timing, and I've noticed that while we're speaking, E-mini futures have broken the key level. 46.25 is what I was watching. We've just broken through there. There are going to be some more stops before that. It's going to be, unfortunately, a very unpleasant Friday. It's kind of ruined Thanksgiving for a lot of traders, I suspect.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. The market's really rattled this morning. Fears over the spread of this new variant will be infecting all asset classes. Now, remember, you can get up-to-date analysis and insight from Mark and the rest of the team. Just go to MLIV Go on your Bloomberg terminal. I would urge everyone to go and check it out today because of these wild swings in the markets. Now, coming up, act first, ask questions later. News of the coronavirus variant have pushed investors to flock towards safe havens. More on the impact on the markets next. This is Bloomberg.